Welcome back to Imperfect Parenting. Ben and Brittney Serpell here. And if you're watching, you'll see this already. If you're listening, you're about to hear some other voices.
Hello.
We have Adalyn and Delani Serpell, our sweet girls, to help us with the podcast today. Kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. You say hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Adalyn's Australian's coming out today. Or Aussie.
It's true.
It's good to have you girls.
I know. We're excited to have you. We thought it'd be fun because we are talking about sex and all of that. And we talk about this in our family often. So it's not brand new. Mm-hmm. But we thought, it might be kind of fun to have this conversation for people to hear from your perspective and just different things. So we'll ask you guys questions and go from there. But how this works is we have a little bit more fun and we're a little more chill than on the Kyla show. So we laugh a lot over here. So we're pretty funny. So we start out with a meme funny. And that's just kind of silly and funny. And so this is one I put up there.
I like it.
Okay.
Go ahead. You should read it.
All right. Well, it's a funny picture of two people. One person is like screaming, very agitated, angry, and he's saying
it's one of those culture war picture.
It is.
Things,
yeah. So he's the guy that's upset is saying, no, if you homeschool your kids and don't teach them a standard curriculum, they will never be able to get a normal job and fit in. And then the person that he's talking to is somewhat normal looking person. And they said, exactly. So it is very much a culture picture in that, there's a lot of things that we've done with you guys as parents that are counterculture to a lot of things going on right now. And even having the discussions of sex and talking about different things, I think is that. And your school, is very different than the normal school that you go to, even kind of what they teach and what they're trying to help get you to think and, start businesses, not be a just factory worker kind of.
Yep.
They're trying to get you to do things differently.
Yep. Which is great because I think there is this just kind of get in line and do what we tell you to do. Mm-hmm. And that's not who we're meant to be, especially in the kingdom. I think it's especially as kingdom-minded people meant to think different and show up different. So you guys are doing a great job.
You are. We're so proud.
We're so proud of both of you. Yes. We really just brought you here to tell everyone that we're proud of you.
Yes. Just how amazing you are.
I know.
Stop it some more,
so
they said.
Smart.
Stop it some more.
Keep going. But yeah, and I think, Adalyn, you're in 8th grade, going in 8th grade. Lainey, you just graduated, going off to BSSM. Whoop, whoop.
It's kind of a wild year for us. We have one leaving high school, one entering her last year of middle school, and the other one entering his first year of middle school.
Yep.
It's kind of a big year for us.
We've left
as parents.
Elementary.
Big for them too.
But I was just thinking about, there's some normals that even I grew up with as far as what you should be doing or what you should have done or participate in as far as middle school and high school, and even you're entering into adulthood. So we're just going to have this conversation, put it on display for our listeners. And really our heart is to help parents not feel so scared and get a perspective from the kids a bit more. You ready to dive in? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it. No wrong answers. No. We're just having a discussion. We're going to have questions. So, you ready, Dad?
Let's do it. Want me to start?
Yeah.
I got called Dad on the show. I like this.
Let's go, Dad.
Come on, Dad.
Daddy-o.
Fadre. That's Delaney's name for me. Now you know. It's like a weird version of
Father and Padre.
Padre, yeah. Fadre. Oh, yeah. It's that simple. So here we go. Why do you think parents should talk to their kids about sex? Let's jump right in. And so we have this conversation. We've talked through different things over the years. But why do you think other parents should be doing this?
Me first.
Sure.
Whoever.
You're
Okay.
closest to me.
I mean, I I kind of experienced this in a very, very, very mild level, but of like not learning about it from your friends and not learning about it from people at school. And I had a little bit of that, and that kind of brought us to how we talked about it, how I talked about it with Mom, which was at a CVS, I remember, in the car.
Yep, that was it.
But yeah, I think just like when it's with your family, then they're a safe space and you can ask more questions and get like a understanding of it, and also know that like it's a kingdom thing and it's not meant to be looked at as a negative thing or a dirty thing, and know when to do it and why we do it and all these things. So when it's done at the right age and the right time and in the right circumstance, it's a lot better. And from the right people.
Yeah, similar to what she said was like get like a better understanding, like not getting it from your friends is like a big part. Like if I'm getting it from my parents and I know like I can go to them to ask questions instead of going to my friends that they don't actually know all that you guys know. So things, and also like I feel like most people look at it as like a bad thing, like you can't talk about it because it's negative. So it's like being able to talk about it with your parents and like they say like it's okay. It's just like how are you gonna like manage yourself and like that sort of thing.
Great.
Yeah. I'm sure that you've both had friends that their parents talked about sex with them and they felt comfortable, and friends that don't have those conversations. How do you think, like the kids that do talk about it with their parents, how do their lives kind of look versus the ones that don't have a space to talk about it with their parents? Does it look different? Can you see a difference?
I think maturity-wise, kind of, like when you talk with your parents, you get like a better understanding and you like become more mature in that. But like when people who like don't talk about it, they kind of like don't really know what it is or like don't understand it, so like aren't really mature of that.
Do they,
or aware.
is it, when you say mature, do they like goof around about it or like make it
Yeah, I guess so.
jokes or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, thinking more of like my age group, there's the people who live like us and talk about it like that. I think have very similar values and very similar thoughts about it, but then people who don't have these conversations are either on either end of it, of like they don't have much knowledge about it and it's just kind of a thing that isn't talked about, or it's on the other end of like it's like a regular topic that is a negative thing, but they do that and experience that often because it's just like they learned about it on their own and so they created it to be a negative thing in their life.
When you say negative thing, like they're acting on it, or participating in it, and it's this
casual thing that's not a heavy kingdom thing.
It's not a valuable thing. Yeah. That's great. I love it.
I think it was your mom that talked about this, Brittney, a long time ago. Not your mom, because she's right there, but Sherry Silk,
Mimi.
your mother. Mimi.
Mimi.
She tells a story about you when you had some struggles and kind of walked through your hard season. And she it's kind of, I'm going to say this, and then I'd love your thoughts on this comment, but she talks about, it's kind of like candy. If you tell a child they cannot have candy, what's the first thing they want?
Candy.
The candy. Exactly. Give me the thing you said I can't have. And so it becomes this elusive kind of like it's behind the curtain. We don't talk about it ever.
Yeah.
And it's a scary thing that we just pretend isn't there, and you can never have it. We can never talk about it. It seems to become the thing that, well, I want that now. Because you said I shouldn't have it, which means it must be special. So I think part of my question there is that part of the thing you've noticed with friends, or what do you think about when I say that candy illustration?
I think when I talked about it with Mom, she kind of had either the same or a very similar analogy of just not saying like this candy is like you can't touch it and you can never think about it or have it, never at all. Instead, it's like God has this amazing candy for you that you get to have with the love of your life one day, but I'd like you to preserve it and wait for it and know when God says it's time for you to have that candy, of a very more mild version of trying to put it down. But yeah, and so I think it's, what was the rest of the question?
You answered it.
No.
That was
Okay.
great.
But yeah.
Hey, it's Brittney here. I'm normally on the Kylo Show, yes, but I wrote a book. I wrote a book for parents, but I talk a lot about moms. So if you're listening to this and you're a mom who's frustrated, who feels like you're failing, who feels hopeless in this game of parenting that we're in. So if that's you, mom, buy yourself this gift on Mother's Day. It's going to be worth it. So I hope that you feel blessed and encouraged by my new book, Imperfect Parenting. You can find it at imperfectparenting.co. So a question we have is, we've had different conversations, and I think I would say that we've had different types of conversations around sex. Like, it's not just one time I talked to you about it. I hope that you got it all. Don't ask any more questions. Like, this is a continual conversation that comes up when you experience something, or when you see something, or you have questions about something. I mean, that's always been my goal. Would that say that's accurate? So in that, for you each personally, you're both in different stages of life, and you're both encountering different things. But because we've had this conversation of sex and your sexuality, and what, we believe, what have you personally walked away with that you found is valuable, that helps you protect this thing?
What have you told us and had the conversations about it that we found valuable?
Go ahead and try and reword it.
I was going to say, maybe a different way to say it could be, when you encounter certain things with friends, what shows up in your heart and your head that puts a boundary up, that stops you from going down a road that you probably shouldn't be walking down right now?
Based off of the conversations that we've had.
Based off what you've learned in the Serpell household.
I think it's the same thing as the candy of I know what this is, and I know what's required for it and what is meant to come out of it. So when it's used or talked about in a different and incorrect setting, it just can cause sort of a reaction of oh, I know that this is not what we're about and what we have talked about and what we've fought to protect. So just kind of remembering that when we encounter things like that.
Do you have any examples of?
Probably somewhere buried in my head. I mean,
any past relationships that you?
Yeah. I mean, past relationships. There's when things are requested of me or brought to my attention. I'm yeah, no, I know that this is not what I'm meant to be doing, so I'm okay, but thank you.
Yeah.
I think another big piece is keeping yourself accountable. When you have an understanding of what it is, you have a new mindset, sort of oh, well, I know what this is. It's not technically a bad thing, but I know what my limits are and what I want to do in this situation. Because there's probably going to be lots of opportunities where you can participate. So it's having that mindset and that option where it's no, but I want to not participate in that and choose something else sort of thing, or not choose that.
That's great.
I think you girls are at different seasons where you've walked through those things being put in your lap, and you're about to walk through those things being put in your lap. So another question is have you run into situations where maybe people at school or people at youth group or different things that maybe they talk about sex, or they are degrading in their conversations about women, or someone being attractive or just disrespectful in a sexual manner? Have you encountered that, and have you had to communicate that's not okay, or that doesn't feel good, or does that thing come up and you're oh, this is that thing that doesn't feel good?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever come up to someone and was hey, I don't know how I feel about this, probably just because of who I am, and also it never worked out that way. But definitely the piece of the check in yourself of oh, I know that this isn't right, and you should be doing that and that kind of thing. But I don't know if I've ever gone up and corrected somebody, but
yeah, your personality is more likely to be you know what, I'm
I'm gonna
probably
think about it. I'm not gonna
hang out
talk
with
to
this
you.
person if this keeps happening.
Yeah.
That you tend to remove yourself rather than knock it off.
There's definitely some kids at like youth or school that would be like someone but make it kind of go a little bit too far than just being like having a crush on someone. And it's almost like well, I know what you're like talking about, like all those feelings and stuff, but like that isn't like what my parents say or like talk about, like sort of thing, where it's like you kind of get that feeling where you're like, I don't think that's like the right way, like what you should be saying or should be doing. So it's kind of like they turn a crush into like a big over dramatic like inappropriate thing, and so it's kind of like almost makes you feel uncomfortable because you're like not sure how to react, not sure what to do.
Yeah. I think something I watched you both do really well in different ways because you have different personalities and friend groups and all that, but I've watched you both keep a standard and set boundaries based on that. So one funny example is even just disrespect. And even if it's not based on sex, when someone's just being disrespectful, I've seen you both in different ways keep the standard of respect in your relationships. And then the same thing with inappropriate sexual stuff that's too soon. It's not helpful. It's not actually what needs to be happening right here. I think I've watched you both maintain a standard and then set boundaries when needed. So first of all, do you agree? You see that?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
In different
Because
ways, yes.
From the outside, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what do you think's going on there that you're protecting that? Like, do you find yourself making those decisions I'm describing?
In just a sexual way or just in disrespect?
I mean,
too?
really both, but let's go with sexual because that's what this is all about today.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I keep repeating myself, but it's just kind of like the same thing of like the check of just like, oh, I know that this isn't. So I distance myself and
So the check. Do you feel like it's our words that are telling you what to do, or do you feel like it's the Holy Spirit that's reminding you?
Good.
it's both. I think it depends on like if it's like an atmosphere, then it'd be the Holy Spirit, and it's just kind of the feel that I have. But if it's like someone talking about something, then I would like it's your words and my beliefs just kind of mixing together of like, yeah, this isn't what I'm really wanting to be around.
Does like when we talk about sex or when we start having a conversation about something sexual or that you've seen or gets brought up, like I know we've had different conversations, like there's a young boy that you're in school with that is very vocal about what he thinks about ladies and likes to communicate them. And even though it seems really inappropriate and kind of disrespectful, like we've talked about how that made you feel and what boundaries, different stuff like that. But does the topic of sex make you feel uncomfortable where you want to avoid it? Or do you feel less afraid of it because we've had conversations with it?
Definitely less afraid because you guys have like talked about it and we've like been able to ask questions. It's been like an open topic sort of thing, like something that we're able to talk about and it's not, like you said, not like a negative thing. So it's like, I feel like some parents also like talking about like that boy, I bet their parents like never really talked to him about sex and all that thing. So he's having these feelings and doesn't know what to do with them sort of thing. So it's like when that topic comes up, I feel like almost has like more knowledge of it because of you guys and because of the Holy Spirit, because of like the feeling I have and like what you guys have told me.
In all honesty, it's not my favorite thing to talk about at all, but it's not like I'm not afraid of it. I mean, it's just like, yeah, we talk about it and it's just a thing that we do, and I'm glad we do rather than it just being a thing that's shoved in a closet and that's it. But yeah, I wouldn't want to like talk about it for hours.
Sure.
It's a short podcast, don't worry.
You only have 10 minutes left.
Okay. But yeah.
But today's going to be 2 hours, don't worry. It's okay. Not too long.
I do think it's funny that, I mean, I think everyone's just also wired differently in, you know, what conversations I want to talk about, what curiosity is there. I think different experiences that you have around it. I mean, Daddy and I both grew up in a home that didn't really talk about sex. And so we got married really young, and I remember even after we were married, after I had you, it was like, I need help, but I don't know. Asking Mimi was kind of hard because I didn't feel like she felt comfortable to have this conversation. So, I mean, I don't think, but maybe, do you feel like Daddy and I have a hard time or ever feel shy or uncomfortable having these conversations?
No.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Definitely really open with having a
I
conversation.
could say like 2 out of the 5 days of a week when we were at school, that would be the topic on the drive home from school. At some way, shape, or form, it was.
Yeah. Well, you were definitely in the peak season of.
But
still.
You were swimming in a sea of hormones.
That's true. Okay. Well, what do you think that feels like? Why do
Yeah.
you think it feels that way?
Well, I'd share my stories from the day.
Yeah.
Like, let's
Wow.
unpack that.
They said that out loud? Yeah.
Well, I guess the next question, you said you're grateful, but you're thankful that we were willing to jump in. We haven't had probably quite those conversations because they happen more in a different way now. It's but they still happen. I guess it just looks different. Your brother's not on this podcast. He's a little young, but
This would be a lot funnier if he was here.
He'd be quieter, I think.
He probably would.
He's right there.
I don't.
He's pretty close.
He's on the line of some new experiences that he's about to probably break into. But what do you? I mean, Delani, you're the oldest. How do you feel like? Do you see anything different in Lincoln that we've done talking about sex that we didn't do with you, or?
I think it's just the normal, like, oldest sibling kind of thing. Like, you are like, okay, you tell her now, and then you tell me, and then you do it earlier and earlier after every kid. I think that's just kind of how it is, because then I start talking about it, and then it gets to Addie, and you have to elaborate whatever I said, and then it just kind of works like that. Like, Lincoln was probably like, I feel like he was little, like 6 when you first started talking about it.
Sure.
So
That was such great honesty. You have to actually go fix what I told Adalyn. That's hilarious.
boys are disgusting. They're like evil. Oh my gosh.
I think what your sister's trying to say is, and that is the beauty of culture and family, which is you are the oldest, so you're the practice child number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So
Practice time.
we're leaning in, navigating, guessing, trying to do our best. And, there's a pretty big gap between the two of you and Lincoln even, but you are leading. So what I think is funny, and we talked about this before with Brooklyn and Seth's daughter, is she doesn't have someone older than her. And like you didn't have. So, you at Addie's age, we look at photos and it's just funny because you didn't have any grid for trying to be older or more mature. Where Adalyn's looking at you going, oh, that's what we're doing?
I was in my neon cheetah print world. And
you were loving it.
Hey, it was
loving
great.
life.
I loved it.
It was so great. And teal and corduroy, all the
Yeah.
prints together in one.
Like I said, she was very confused on seasons. She wore winter clothes in summer.
I had
and summer
every
clothes
color
in
on
winter.
all the time,
I loved it.
and
Sorry.
had the least clothing on when it was
I just-
snowing.
It's true.
Miss those things.
It's true. But I think with Adalyn, your maturity in front of her had her looking, because she loves you and she looks at you as a person of influence. And so she's, maturing faster than what you probably did, and which is what you're saying is Adalyn's trying to, and I think in that really hard season that we went through, the beginning of high school with you, there was a lot of, them trying to figure out what happened and us trying to figure out what do we tell them, because trying to protect you and what they believe and value and see about you, but also not trying to feel like they were left guessing,
Yeah.
and also leading and all of that. So, I mean, do you remember that season much, Addie?
I do. I remember just like lots of nights of you guys going and talking to her, and me and Lincoln were always like, why can't we come in, sort of thing. And you're like, just 1 second, we'll say goodnight to you. And we're like, what? And so I think it's kind of like what you said, like became like us guessing in our minds, sort of like guessing what was happening. But it was definitely like almost confusing because me and Lincoln weren't that old, I feel like.
You were
So
pretty
you
little still.
kind of just like didn't have that understanding. We're like, why does she Like, why is she always crying in the room? Like, what's going on, sort of thing. Like, why is this such a hard time? So,
Yeah, I mean, it just reminds me of Adalyn's moment where she said, I wrote Santa a letter. Remember this? Remember what it said?
not really.
All I want for Lainey is for her to be happy again.
I'll give you all my presents.
Yeah.
If Lainey can just be happy.
She got her gift.
She did. Lainey's very happy.
Well,
Merry Christmas.
Is it Merry Christmas? Many Christmases later.
Yeah.
That's great. The Christmas that keeps on giving. So sweet. I do love your relationship, girls. It's very sweet. They're almost holding hands over here. A few more questions. I think one that I would love to hear from both of you is, what do you think other kids need to hear from their parents? So there's parents listening today, maybe some teenagers too, but if parents are listening, what would you tell them or encourage them based on what you think the kids just need to hear from them?
I think a big part in our house is that it's a safe topic and it's a safe place. Like, we never want you never want us to feel like we have to hide and not feel like push these feelings down because it's not right. So it's really like setting that goal of being like, hey, it's safe. You're able to come in and ask us questions, and that kind of gives like the kids more like confidence and have like a better relationship because they know that they can go to their parents when they have questions. So I think that's just a big part, is like setting them up, being like, hey, this is a safe place. Come to us. Don't go to your friends when you have questions, I think.
I think, I mean, as awkward as it is, but when you enter the world of puberty and hormones, it's
Words we haven't said yet. Thank you. I've said hormones once. Okay.
I mean, just like welcoming that and not making your child feel like they're broken.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was talking with Sydney about it this morning, and he was like, then you make sure they do it before puberty because then you go crazy, man.
This is one of your best friends.
But yeah, we're just like making the child feel like it's okay to talk about, and that whatever they're feeling, whatever they're going through is like, it's okay, and like we can talk about it, and just explain that like this is it's weird, but it's from the Lord, and and explain what to go from there, where to go from there.
Yeah.
What to go.
What to go.
Way to go.
Way
Way to go. Way to go.
It's a great point. I think the flourishing emotions and hormones and puberty and all that stuff does bring on a whole new set of topics and discoveries and confusion.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well,
I mean,
well
like,
said.
when you get those emotions, you kind of, like, don't know what to do with them. So, like, your parents should be the people, like, to step in and kind of give you directions and, like, guide you of, like, what to do when you feel these. And, like you said, like, checking on yourself. So, that's, like, a big part.
Should parents be afraid to have this conversation, or do you think they should?
We were talking to Addie. I was talking to Addie this morning, and I said, at least in my world, I don't think it's a scary topic. I think it's a really heavy topic. So just handling that piece well. But again, in our family, it doesn't feel as heavy just because it's become so regular. But yeah, I think that is just, I have no idea if people would be afraid of it. Maybe because there's a negative or a scary attachment to that. There could be that as well, but...
You think it would be harder to talk about if Daddy and I were nervous about it every time we brought it up?
Like,
Make me nervous.
Yeah. Like you said about, like, Mimi, like, when you didn't know if you could come to her because, like, you didn't know if that was a topic you guys talked about. So it's kind of like having the parents think and be like, did my parents have this conversation with me? Like, do I want to have this conversation with my kids? Because, like, I think if you guys didn't have the conversation with me and then I grew up later, I'd be like, definitely want to have that conversation. So my kids would, like, I don't know how to put it.
Have a different experience.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't
Yeah, like-
continue the fear of not having the conversation, but lean in to have it.
Yeah. If I think about, like, my life, and if that conversation never really began and we didn't continue, and I just went on with, like, regular relationships and all of that, and just public school and all the pieces that comes with that, I feel like I would be a lot more lost and weirded out and confused in a lot of areas. So I think I'm really thankful for how it was done and how we handle it and stuff. But
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Fight for family.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, ladies.
Imperfect parenting.
That's it. Imperfect parenting. Thanks for joining us, and thanks
Yes,
for
girls. Thanks for
helping
coming
girls.
you're
We
welcome.
appreciate it. We'll see you later.
in. Bye.
Bye bye.